Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is how I think Watford will set up against Charlton Athletic on the opening day of the Sky Bet Championship season. And here is our empty tactics board at the moment. A new resource created by James Alcott, who's a fantastic YouTuber. This is totally free to use. So if you guys want to have a play around with Watford yourself, make sure to check out the JLA Tactics board. And this is what we're going to be using this season to break down Watford's setup, especially under Paulo, in what is quite a unique system, something we've not really seen at Watford before, especially when you compare in possession compared to out of possession as well. But we'll dive into all of that in the video today. We'll start with assembling the Watford back line. And this, of course, depends on availability in the current injury situation. And whilst we've not heard from Paulo yet, pre-match when it comes to all of this team news, we can infer and understand and take educated guesses from what we know so far. But clearly Egil Selvik goes straight into goal. He's been a dependable pair of hands ever since he arrived at Watford from Udinese in January. A real astute signing actually by the club. Daniel Batman looks set to leave. I don't believe he's even training with the Watford squad as it stands. Nathan Baxter has been brought in as a decent backup option as Jonathan Bond left the club to head off to the MLS once again this summer. And Alfie Marriott is the third choice in that position. So Egil Selvik straight into goal. Left back is interesting because you could potentially argue, and I know some people have differing opinions here, but you could argue Caleb Wiley is a better player, or at least has more potential than Mark Bowler has. But because Wiley arrived late to Watford pre-season and we've not seen him feature, at least publicly, in any matches yet, I do feel Bowler will get the nod here. Caleb Wiley may potentially come on for the last half an hour, 20 minutes or so, but Mark Bowler, by all accounts, has had a really good pre-season. I've only seen him once myself, actually, against Deportivo La Coruña at Vicarage Road, and he did really impress me, actually, especially with how quickly he was bombing up and down that touchline. So yeah, I think Mark Bowler for me will probably get the nod in that left back role. Alongside Bowler, this is interesting because Matty Pollock did actually start against Deportivo but come off quite early on with what at the time looked to be quite a serious muscular injury, potentially to his upper thigh. By all accounts, he seems to be okay. Matty Pollock will probably be in the matchday squad against Charlton, but I doubt he's in the position to potentially start. I think Matty Pollock is someone we could see maybe against Norwich in the Carabao Cup on the following Tuesday, for example. But in terms of the defence and the two centre-backs, I feel we'll see Kevin Caben and James Abanka, and I think they both complement each other really well. Kevin Caben arguably is the best central defender at the club when he's fit. We've seen in the brief appearances he's made, especially against Luton and Middlesbrough last season, the attributes and qualities he has are really, really good. And if it wasn't for his injury issues, he probably wouldn't even be at Watford. So Kevin Caben and James Abanka for me should be Watford's centre-back pairing. Again, I do feel sorry for Ryan Andrews in a way, and by no means am I trying to single him out here. He definitely has his attributes, especially when going forward. But I just feel against Charlton, around the atmosphere, the opening game of the season, Nathan Jones, we know what his teams are like. They're nasty to play against. Ngakia defensively is ultimately the best player in that role, and he is, I should say, who I expect to see in that position this weekend. What I did see against Deportivo, though, especially out of possession, is that the wing backs or full backs, however you want to call them, they did like to commit forward quite a lot, which left a lot of space in behind for Deportivo to run into. So I'm sure that's something Paulo would address. We'll come on to the midfield in a moment, but Hector Cipriano on occasion could actually drop deeper and almost form there. You can see a back five essentially. So yeah, quite a complex system that Paulo wants to play. It's going to take some getting used to, of course, but that is the favoured back line I would like to see against Charlton. In terms of the midfield, as we just alluded to, Hector, the protector, is definitely going to be the deepest midfielder we'll see in this system. He was nicknamed a protector at Peterborough for that exact reason. He would break up play and give it essentially to the more talented, pacey players out wide. So Hector would definitely be one of the deeper midfielders in this system. And for me, to describe this system, I would expect to see, out of possession anyway, a 4-2-3-1 system. Loser will go alongside Hector, slightly more advanced, I would say, to find him pockets up here when he's allowed to do so. And Musa Sissoko, this is a surprising one for me. I'm not a huge Musa Sissoko fan, but I do feel he'll be utilised maybe more than some people expect this season, especially to begin with the current injury situation surrounding Georgie and Vata, maybe not quite being up to starting standard as things stand. So I think Sissoko will probably play in this more advanced role, using his pace and power to kind of drive towards that back line. Loser, where available, will spray passes out wide, of course, and find pockets up front. And as we just mentioned, Hector the protector, breaking up play and feeding it through to the players out wide. So generally, that is how I feel we'll set up in midfield. Attack, again, is very interesting, and Paolo's been quite public in his comments surrounding one player in particular, and that being Mamadou Doumbia and where he fits into this system. Now, Doumbia had a great end to last season. He, of course, scored that really nice finish against Bristol City. He won the penalty against Luton Town. He won the penalty away at Middlesbrough as well, of course, if you remember that. For me, I would much prefer to see Doumbia up front as our central striker competing with Luca Chiamgard. The interesting point I'm trying to make here is that Paolo Pezzolano seems to fancy Doumbia as a potential option wide on this left-hand side. Now, I can see the reasoning behind that. Doumbia's work rate and physicality are great attributes to have. Is he naturally, given his physical profile, able to kind of cut in and shoot on his right foot from that side? I'm not so sure that suits him as a player. Now, I'm happy to be proved wrong. But given what Paolo said publicly in the media so far, I do think this is what we'll see against Charlton. So Doumbia on this left-hand side. Luca Chiamgard, of course, as our main striker acquisition this window. I expect him to start up front. He really impressed me against Deportivo, actually, especially how he won the ball that ultimately led to Jack Greaves scoring that goal. I expect Luca up front. And Kwadwo Bar seems to be fit and ready to go this pre-season. He'll be on this right-hand side. So in terms of a general setup, a 4-2-3-1 formation, this is the team I feel will play against Charlton, given the current injury situation at the club as well. Do let me know if you agree in the comments down below. I think for me, generally, what I'm excited about, especially when it comes to this system, is the variability that it allows. Watford could very easily switch to a back five, a back three. The wing backs can push very high, and that is what I'll try to demonstrate to you now. So as you can see there, as we just discussed, that is the standard, bog standard, really, 4-2-3-1 system. Of course, if Sissoko pushes up here, he can contribute more in attack. Equally, if we need to defend more, Sissoko can drop into a much more deeper role. But generally, I feel that is how we'll see the setup against Charlton. If we want to go to a 5 and Hector kind of drops into this role, I think this is definitely a possibility we could see. Ngakia and Bowler, or whoever the fullbacks may be, could push very high. And Paolo spoke before, especially in interviews, about how he likes his fullbacks to almost push into a number 10 position. We could essentially see Bowler and Ngakia, pushing right inside here, right into the field and contributing quite heavily in attacking areas. Now, of course, when it comes to defence, that leaves Watford quite susceptible to balls in behind. And on occasions against Deportivo at La Coruña, I do feel we struggled, especially when Ryan Andrews was on the pitch. I felt he got exposed quite heavily when he was pushing into this more advanced position. But he trusts Hector and Caben and James Abankwah to collect the ball and push up where required. This could potentially work in our favour. It's a high risk, high reward system, of course, but that's how Paolo wants to play. And ultimately, if Watford want to find success this season with a squad full of potential, this may be what we have to do. So really interesting stuff. I'm interested to get your thoughts in the comments section down below. Let me know if you agree with that first team I showed you, or would you make any changes to that system? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.